welcome back to another episode of Tie 24 Sports. Tie 24 Sports. Please like, share, and subscribe. Donate to the Cash App down at the bottom, $ TY Rebel 22, and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, X/Twitter at TY24 Sports. Now with the NBA picks for today, I'm going to go out on the limb and take Milwaukee money line. I think they'll redeem themselves against the Pacers. Then I got to go with OKC against the Grizzlies -7.5, and then I got the Lakers redeeming themselves on the money line. And then when we go to the NHL back on the ice with the hockey, I got to ride with New Jersey and Carolina under 6.5 goals, and I like Toronto and Ottawa under 7.5 goals. And I also like the Florida Panthers to beat their rivals, the Tampa Bay Lightning. So we'll go back to those picks. But as you see, we got the title up top, NFL mock draft. So with the draft coming up, I believe on Thursday night, it's gonna be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Let's check out what ESPN has to say as far as the mock draft goes. Okay, so here we go. So they had a little video of Cam Ward or whatever at the U. It's pretty much been decided that he's going to be the top pick for the Tennessee Titans. So we go down. It says first overall pick is Cam Ward. It says strong consideration goes to pass rusher Abdul Carter and do-it-all playmaker Travis Hunter here. But quarterback is the top priority for the Titans. So that's pretty much the gist of it. They need a quarterback, and Cam Ward is a generational talent. I mean, not only with his physical talent, but also with his mental neck up ability, and also his heart, his ability to lead young men. You see how he even gets after Shedeur Sanders, which is a leader of young men. So Cam Ward, I can see being a leader in the NFL in general. Challenging the Patrick Mahomes and the Joe Burrows if Joe Burrow can stay healthy, because he's in that AFC. So now the AFC is going to have another great quarterback in Cam Ward. Moving on to Cleveland, I thought they were going with Abdul Carter, but now they're saying Cleveland is looking at Travis Hunter, the wide receiver / cornerback. That was a pick that a lot of people were saying was going to go to the New England Patriots. But it says basically, but the team has said it won't force a quarterback pick, and selecting high allows Cleveland to get arguably the best player in the draft, Hunter. Browns GM Andrew Berry has said the team will play Hunter primarily at wide receiver, and he is open to Hunter moonlighting on defense to continue showcasing his two-way skills. So they actually want him as a wide receiver, and I can see Travis Hunter's representation wanting him to get signed as a wide receiver and play cornerback, because wide receivers get the big contracts. After like left tackles on quarterbacks, wide receivers are getting huge money. They're getting sometimes quarterback money, 25, 30 million. Okay, now the Giants, the New York Giants, they're going with Abdul Carter, the outside linebacker / defensive end out of Penn State. It says the Giants don't seem to view Shedeur Sanders as a top 3 talent, even with their need at quarterback. I'm skeptical of that. I think they're trying to throw people off. I believe that the Giants will take Shedeur Sanders. He's box office. He's New York City. He can handle it. Because who's their quarterback? They got Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. I feel like you're wasting a top 3 pick. Okay, now let's go on to New England. We got Will Campbell, offensive tackle out of LSU. He's kind of a swing guy. You don't know if you want him at offensive tackle or guard, but basically he's a guy that a lot of people have been talking about since before the year. It says Mike Vrabel has highlighted 2 priorities in the building. In building a winning team, providing infrastructure to help quarterback Drake May succeed with an efficient passing game and finding a way to affect the opposing quarterback. But it will be no Abdul Carter, so you can't affect the quarterback with a pass rusher. Now, Ashton Jeanty, they're saying that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to go with Ashton Jeanty. Now, I don't see a problem with Trevor Etienne. It says running back Trevor Etienne's production has dropped in consecutive seasons, and wide receiver Brian Thomas was the Jaguars' lone playmaker. Maybe, but I feel like that's kind of high to be taking a running back. I'm skeptical of Ashton Jeanty, but he can be a great guy. But I don't know if he's like Saquon Barkley to be taking him up there. Okay, so now we got the Las Vegas Raiders. They're going to take Armand Membo from Missouri. He's an offensive tackle. Unlike Campbell, he's definitely a tackle. He's not a guard. It says the Raiders will focus on strengthening their offensive line. They do have Geno Smith, so we'll see how that goes. Then you got a Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. He's an offensive tackle. He had some injuries last year, but I guess they're gonna still ride with him. They're saying the Jets want Banks, but the thing with the Jets is I would probably go with quarterback with them too, because who's gonna quarterback for the Jets? You know, they got Justin Fields, so I guess they're gonna ride with Justin Fields. Maybe he's not a project. Okay, you got Carolina. They're taking Jalen Walker of Georgia. I'm not mad at this pick, but he's a great specimen. I just don't know if he's polished enough. That's kind of a gamble. Now you got Mason Graham. Mason Graham, I'm also skeptical of his production leaving Michigan at defensive tackle and going to the pro level. He was big, strong, older guy. I think he redshirted. I don't know if he's going to be able to play that bully ball on a professional level. It says with one of the best defensive players in the draft still on the board, New Orleans will go the best player available route instead of reaching for a quarterback, selecting a player who could help shape new coordinator Brandon Staley's defense on an aging roster. Okay, that makes sense. Maybe just adding pieces. I think that Jalen Walker would make more sense at New Orleans. But hey, if he's not there, he's not there. Now Tyler Warren, this is a guy that I feel like could be a slight overrated guy, but I couldn't see him and Caleb Williams working out because Caleb Williams is a hell of a quarterback, but he's really dependent on the outside. But if he had a tight end with the type of Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers type of darts that Caleb Williams throws, having a tight end can really change the game for him. So it's enough said with that. They're comparing him to Sam Laporta that plays in Detroit. It says a tight end is as versatile as Warren could be the Bears before the Bears, what Sam Laporta was for Ben Johnson's Detroit offense. So they have Ben Johnson in out of the Detroit Lions. The old offensive coordinator is not a head coach for the Bears. So we'll see how they acclimate to the first year new offense. Now, Mykel Williams out of Georgia, I'm a little more high on him than Jalen Walker. They're saying him going to San Francisco. San Francisco has a nice track record of doing well with defensive linemen, first-round picks. So it's a no-brainer. They're saying San Francisco's woeful run defense. Okay, so let me go back to the top. I was popping it. It says Williams' lack of pass rush production, 14 sacks in 3 seasons, and a 2024 ankle injury bring questions, but he should help the San Francisco 49ers woeful run defense right away and get plenty of one-on-one pass rush opportunities opposite Nick Bosa. So they're dependent on Nick Bosa's health, and they feel like he still can get more production out of himself as a pass rusher because 14 sacks in 3 years, that's like a little over 4 sacks a year maybe. So you kind of got to step that up. You got Teteroy McMillan for the Dallas Cowboys at the 12th pick. It says that the Cowboys need playmakers for Dak Prescott, and McMillan fills that role. He might not have the desirable speed, but he can make plays in traffic, and he has a big catch radius. I think Dallas does well with their draft pick, so I can see the guy working out because he's a guy, it depends on where he goes if he'll be good. Now, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins taking Jaheed Barron. I don't know about taking a cornerback. I don't know. There's so many holes in this roster, but it says Miami's runneth over with both Barron and Will Johnson still on the board. So Will Johnson is the one out of Michigan. He's a safer pick to me. It says this is an ideal spot to trade down, but Miami takes the speedy Barron in this exercise. Okay, so I would take Johnson if anybody, but I really would try to trade down with that pick and get another pick. Now, another tight end going to the Colts is Colston Loveland. It basically says the Colts have been connected to Warren for months, but they won't have that option here. So it's saying that Tyler Warren will be gone already. Saying with the Atlanta Falcons, they're looking at defensive end from Marshall, Mike Green. A lot of people wanted Mike Green to hit the transfer portal, but he refused. He stayed. It says Green had 17 sacks last season. So basically, he's a monster off that edge. I think he'll be successful in Atlanta. Now you got Tyler Booker from Alabama, a guard that they have going to Arizona. It says the Cardinals have been looking to bolster their interior offensive line this season, and Booker would be the kind of foundational player that they need to do just that. It says he fit very well in Arizona's downhill run game, paving the way for a perennial 1,000-yard back in James Conner. So James Conner had a bounce-back year. He scored a lot of touchdowns. I picked him for a player parlay, so I can see that guard from Alabama, kind of squeezing in there. But this is the Nick Saban's Alabama, so it's a different level of offensive lineman. Okay, you got Donovan E, because it says Iruka. I don't know how to say that. It seems like an African name. Out of Boston College. We just gonna call him Donovan E. It says that he's going to the Bengals. It says Alabama's Jaheed Campbell and even a couple of safety options were in the mix, but the Bengals lack long-term answers at defensive end. Uh, Azaruka makes the most sense. So basically, they just feel like he makes sense based on player need. He was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year and can mix in immediately as a defensive end pass rusher. So we'll see. And Al Golden, the former Miami Hurricane coach, is actually the defensive coordinator up there at the Cincinnati Bengals. Now at the 18th pick out of North Dakota State, we got a Gary Zamble. It basically says in a perfect world, the Seahawks would trade back and grab Zamble later in the first round. But I guess they're gonna get that guy early. Now Tampa Bay would get Will Johnson. I feel like this would be a perfect pick for Tampa Bay. I don't like cornerback pick for Dolphins at all, and I definitely would rather Will Johnson over Barron because Dolphins kind of hit or miss sometimes with developing guys. But I feel like Will Johnson would do great. He'll thrive in Tampa Bay. This is more for the player than it is for that team. Now moving on to Denver, you got Luther Burton. He's been getting bad mouth about the scouts. He's out of this world as a talent. I don't think any wide receivers. Oh yeah, Teddy Miller went to the Cowboys. So I think this might be the steal of the draft. Luther Burton, if they can handle whatever off the field issues. A lot of people are saying that it's just accusations. It says in this scenario, players such as offensive tackle, Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolan, Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon, and South Carolina safety Nick Amenwari. Sorry if I messed up your name, guy. We get long looks. And while running back is a big need, the Broncos feel like they can get a good one on day 2. I totally agree. I think running back's a day 2 position. It's some first round running backs. I agree with Genty, but just not at that spot. Now, let's say the Pittsburgh Steelers getting Shedeur Sanders. This would be perfect. It says at the time of the pick, Aaron Rodgers still hasn't made a decision. And though they haven't given him a deadline, the Steelers can't wait on the 4-time MVP forever. I wouldn't even pay attention to Aaron Rodgers. You get Shedeur and you move forward. You got Metcalf. You got the other receiver. I can't think of his name. Pickens. Just get Shedeur, man. Okay, now you got Derek Harmon from Oregon, the defensive tackle going to the LA Chargers. Interior defensive line is perhaps the Chargers' most significant need. It says LA lost its 2 starting defensive tackles from last season in Pona Ford and Morgan Fox in free agency. So they definitely need a Derek Harmon, and he might be the best defensive tackle in this draft. Now you're going with Shamar Stewart out of Miami Pace, playing for Texas A&M. He's a defensive end going to the Green Bay Packers. I don't like the team fit for the player, but he is a great talent. It says 2 decades of passing on a receiver in the first round makes it hard to predict the Packers will finally end that streak, even though Emeka Ibuka and Matthew Golden were both available. I don't think those are first round. Well, Ibuka's a first round receiver, but I don't think Golden's a first round receiver. But if I was the Packers, I might take a reach on them. But I like the Packers' young receivers. They got some guys. Then the Vikings, they got them taking Nick Amenwari, the safety out of South Carolina. It says that the Vikings would trade down from this spot only for a slam dunk return and non-materialized in conversations here. So I guess they're not really getting back the talk that they want as far as trade compensation. It says with Booker, Zabel, and Harmon all off the board, it says the choice here is a safety whose size and playmaking skills will make him an intriguing addition for Brian Flores. So Brian Flores did not get a head coaching job. He is still the best or one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. Coming out of that Belichick tree. Out of the 25 pick, we got Houston Texans taking Emeka Ibuka. That would be a steal, especially with them losing Stephon Diggs, getting an Ohio State wide receiver. You got to believe the hype. He would be reuniting with C.J. Stroud, going into quarterback C.J. Stroud's 3rd year, adding a former teammate that had 2,868 receiving yards in his 4-year career at Ohio State. Now you got the L.A. Rams. Matthew Golden, that would be a great pick, especially with the loss of Cooper Kupp. It says before the Rams signed wide receiver Devontae Adams in free agency, they believed they had to draft a wide receiver at the number 26 pick. I still feel like they can still get this wide receiver. You kind of want to share up the defense, but you can't do but so much with one pick. Then you got Malachi Starks from Georgia going to the Baltimore Ravens. That's the rich getting richer. Great defensive player going to a great defensive organization. That's what I like. I want to see players go places where they can thrive. Now the Detroit Lions getting James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I think Detroit is probably the only place he can go and win. I think with Coach Dan Campbell, they'll keep that guy in check. I've seen practices of Detroit on Hard Knocks, and those are former players coaching, so they're not going to accept certain things that even coaches that never played would accept. Now you got Washington Commanders taking Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky, kind of a reach for a first-round pick. It says Washington would love to build a strong offensive line and find an edge rusher and running back can address those needs later in the draft. So they need offensive lineman, edge runner, and running back, and they want to address that later. Okay. It says that with Hairston, the Commanders get another young corner who can play outside with ball skills. He had 6 interceptions in the last 2 years, which is averaging like 3 a year. Maybe he had 2 1 year and 4 the next. Okay, now we have Buffalo with Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan. It says comeback was heavily considered in this spot. I don't know if they mean trading back because it says, cornerback. I'm sorry. Yeah, cornerback. But they're going to go defensive tackle. I could see that working out. And, the Grant kid from Michigan, he's a mauler, It says he became the first one-technique defensive tackle drafted by the Bills since 2018 when they drafted Harrison Phillips. Well, we'll see because this is a mock draft. Okay, and then finally, we got Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Says Ohio State has 6 different players at left tackle over the past 4 seasons and have been frustrated with their inability to find a long-term solution, but the frustration ends with the selection of Simmons. So Simmons did great last year. Okay, and now we got Walter Nolan from my school, Ole Miss, going to the Philadelphia Eagles. A big key to the Eagles' success is investing in the trenches. They selected a lineman in the first round 9 times since Howie Roseman took over. So they've been taking a lot of linemen over the years. So that's pretty much what's going on in the world of football, in the world of sports. That's the show for today. I'm going to get out of here. You see the picks. Let me take this down. You guys see the picks. Hold on. So we got the NHL picks. New Jersey and Carolina under 6.5. Toronto and Ottawa under 7.5. And then we got the Florida Panthers money line. And then we got the Lakers money line for the NBA. We also have OKC minus 7.5 and Milwaukee money line. So that's going to be the show for today. Ty 24 Sports. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your support. I'm out.